Hey everyone, welcome to the show. I am thrilled that you are here because I'm always thrilled that you're here because I like you guys. Anyway, I am coming to you in the midst of our quarantine. I hope that you are staying well. I am trying my best to stay well and sane and, just doing what I can. I'm actually naturally a homebody, so this really isn't that tough for me. I just really am hoping that everyone is staying nice and safe and healthy. And I hope that, for my suddenly homeschooling moms, I hope that you are doing well. Actually, this is a great time to mention, I put together some resources for my parents who are at home with their children. With my teaching background and with my current work that I do with children and my Healthy Kids cooking classes, I am now providing virtual cooking classes for kids, and they have educational resources coupled with them. And it's really just meant to give parents a break. So they're designed for kids ages 4 and up. This is almost an exact duplicate of my regular cooking classes that I do. I teach children simple cooking skills, and I show them how to make a healthy recipe from start to finish. And a lot of the recipes that I did for these virtual cooking classes were items that you probably already have in your pantry. And so if you wanted to check that out, I'm sharing a free class. You can find that in the show notes below. You can also go to my website, ohhowhealthy.com, and you can access that there. So anyway, without further ado, let us dive into today's episode. Hey everyone, I hope everyone is doing okay during these strange and unusual times during this current pandemic. I hope everyone's staying safe and in their homes, and if they have to venture out, then doing it as safely as possible. I know that while we're home, while we have limited access to certain stores, grocery stores, restaurants, takeout, all this stuff, and living out of the pantry, eating foods that we mainly have in the pantry that are non-perishables. Maybe we have some perishable foods, frozen foods. We're all trying to make the best of the situation. And in my Facebook group, I asked a question to the group, asking if there's any way that I can support and give back. I asked, what are some things that, you're struggling with? Are you struggling finding groceries, tired of the same meals, et cetera, et cetera. And so anyway, I wanted to share this situation with you that maybe you can relate to and maybe it can help you, because I know that I'm hearing a lot of the same concerns come up over and over again. I'm hearing things of the sort like eating a lot of processed or canned foods, about previously not having enough time to eat, and now there's too much time to eat, people who are stress eating, who are overeating, and so I plan on touching on all these different topics throughout in Facebook Lives, in the podcast, and social media posts. But right now I wanted to discuss a comment that I got and my response to it. So anyway, there was one woman who replied, and she mentioned that she struggled with just choosing one thing, like one snack food to have. And for example, like cookies or cheese or ice cream or cake. And then she ended up saying, well, she typically has all of it. And so I was thinking about this. I was mulling this over. I'm like, okay. And so I was like, wanted to be 100% transparent and honest with my response, because I know how it feels. Like, I know what it's like. I have had past eating disorders and binge eating concerns, and definitely struggled with my weight, and struggled with, because I love all that stuff too. Like, I love cheese, I love cake, I love cookies, I love all this stuff. And guess what? I want to eat it all the time also. But I really had to learn to manage it. And that's what I aim to share with you in this podcast and in my membership site and all these different resources. So anyway, my response was this. I mentioned that I can 100% relate. And I shared this funny story about what happens probably more often than I would like to admit, is when I'm around candy, or maybe I go to the movies with my husband, or we're at a party, or whatever it is. I mean, my husband can definitely have a sweet tooth, so there's, occasionally things in the house, or if we go to the movies, he's one of those people that gets a large popcorn with extra butter and candy, like probably Raisinets and peanut M&Ms. And yes, he is this person with a large soda. He does not do that all the time, but he has a thing with movies and wanting to have his sweet and salty treats. Anyway, I'm often in the situation where I'm saying, you know what? no, Jamie, no, you can't have it. Like, let's not do that to ourselves. Let's not even try it. Or I would say just one. And let's be honest. I mean, who in the heck can just have one peanut M&M or one gummy bear or one sip of anything, right? Like, come on. So anyway, I found myself also doing this when it came to watching TV and like, right now while we're home, I'm still being so like my work lifestyle really hasn't changed much since I work at home anyway. So, I'm used to not turning on the TV in the middle of the day or doing certain things because it's work time, right? And I found myself doing these similar things with TV, where I'm like, oh, just one show, Jamie, you only have time for one half an hour show, or just one or two, but we know how it is. We all know how Netflix says, you watched 3 episodes. Are you sure you want to continue? Or are you still there? And you're like, damn it. Like, I just spent 3 hours. And I couldn't help but think how similar my mentality was around the M&Ms and TV. So you know what I was like, I am going to just enjoy myself. And this is why I'm a huge advocate of intentionally indulging. I was like, I am going to intentionally indulge in the TV show and in my own box of candy. And we ran to like Target or whatever. And don't worry, we were being safe. And it was a time where we had to run out anyway to get things because we were running short on toilet paper. And luckily Target did have some. I think we were the second to last. There's one other package which we left there. And so I had gotten a box, like my favorite candy is like the gummy candies, like Sweet and Sour Patch Kids. And so I had gotten a box of candy, one of those little mini ones, like the boxes, like ones that you might find at the movie theater. And I was like, I'm going to watch my whole series of Ozark and, or what I had left. Cause I was like one episode. And so I might've had like 7 episodes left. And then I was like, I'm going to eat this whole box of candy. I'm just going to just enjoy myself. And it was so interesting, the shift that took place, because I told my husband, I'm like, I'm going to enjoy myself. And he had his own box of candy or whatever. And it was so funny because previously when I would watch a show or have the candy, one was like never enough. Or I would think about the show. I'm like, oh, it's almost over. Like, does anyone else do this? Is anyone else weird like me? Like, the show's almost over. I don't want this good show or good movie to end. But anyway, I was like watching the show, thoroughly enjoying it, eating my candy. And so interestingly enough, I felt super satisfied after 2 episodes, and I had like just like half of the candy, and I'm like, you know what? I really don't even want anymore. And maybe after my 3rd show, I'm like, I'm good. Like, I had my fill, and it felt really, really nice. And so it was interesting to think like this shift that took place when we keep saying no to ourselves, whether it's about food or about a drink or about a snack or about a show. And then when we're just like, I'm just going to have it. It was almost like when you're a kid and you're not allowed to do something and your parent is like, don't do that. And it was like reverse psychology where they're like, all right, go ahead, do it. You're like, I don't even want to do it anymore. And so this is why I'm a huge advocate of intentionally indulging versus unintentionally indulging. Because at the beginning of this comment, remember the person mentioned like, I choose between this or that and that. And I end up having it all anyway. So my response was sharing this honest story and explaining why this is a huge reason why I'm a believer in intentionally indulging, not accidentally indulging and feeling like crap about ourselves, and making healthy swaps when possible. I'll talk about that in just a second, but sometimes there really is no substitutes for making healthy swaps for Sour Patch Kids because they're awesome. But, of course, there are substitutes that we can have, or, there's gummy recipes, like those little gummy bear recipes, which I've made before and they're great, but they might take a little bit longer to make, and you're just like, I want some Sour Patch Kids, right? And so that is completely okay. This is why I'm a huge advocate also of not saying no to anything, not saying no that you can't have certain food, which is why I do not like diets, because when you're on a diet, you cannot have something. And how long is it before you can have sugar again, or carbs again, or a piece of cake again, or whatever, you fill in the blank. And so it's about like finding a nice balance so that you can lose weight still. And there's plenty of podcast episodes that I talk about how to lose weight without dieting, just by finding a nice balanced diet, right? So I mentioned, long story short, that sometimes saying no to ourselves can backfire in our faces only to eat the snack anyway. So how long would it have been before I say, no, I'm not going to have any of those candies. No. Before I'm like, just give me a candy. And then I have one candy and I want all of them, right? This can backfire in our face when we do it the other way around. And with my past binge eating behavior, this is something that I really do feel familiar with. Like, I get it. Like, I 100% understand. And it's definitely not nice thinking about, like, it doesn't feel good thinking about back when there would be a bag of chips in front of me, like a huge bag of barbecue chips, and I would not be able to just not eat the majority of the bag. And so I'm going to share a few things that I do to help me now. And yeah, these are things that have helped me come from a really, really, really unhealthy place with food, where I'm just obsessing with food and restricting food and having eating disorders and having lots of issues around that, to really being in a place where I can be in a really happy place with my food and my weight and my well-being around that. So I have about 4 or 5 things to talk about. And these are the things that I do to help myself. So anyway, my first tip would be to let yourself have the food that you are craving or that you're wanting, right? So the worst case scenario is that you end up eating it all, right? And what is the real harm in doing that if you end up eating it all anyway? Only this way, you probably wouldn't feel as guilty about it. I mean, you probably will feel guilty because you're eating a bunch of junk and you're probably not going to feel good about it. So that's the worst case scenario, is that you end up actually eating it all. And then the best case scenario is if you kind of look at it like, I can have it all, but why have it all? Like, there's no point, So this is kind of what I did when I had the candy in front of me. Like, I was like, I'm going to have the whole thing. I'm allowing myself to have the whole thing. And even if you're someone who tracks your food or whatever, like, you can allot for the space to have a box of candy, which I definitely did not even look at how many calories or the amount of carbs or sugar or whatever. I usually don't look at that stuff. So anyway, worst case scenario is you say to yourself, you can have it all, and you actually eat it all. You might feel a little bit less guilty. And the best case scenario is that you start to not want it all, right? My second tip would be to make healthy swaps where possible. So maybe if you're finding yourself craving ice cream or chips, can we make healthy alternatives for that? In my cookbook, Simple Balance Eats, I have recommendations and recipes for a healthy ice cream, chips. I mean, chips are potatoes. Like, you can easily slice up potatoes. If you have an air fryer, if you have an oven, you can bake those up, and then you can make that. You can have that, even sweet potato chips. You can get creative with like different veggie chips. I mean, there's plenty of ways to get that texture, that feel, that flavor, that taste that you're looking for from the chips or from the ice cream or from the candy that you can get elsewhere. So make healthy swaps where possible. The third tip would be to have some of the treat and then put the rest of the food in an inconvenient place where it can't easily be accessed. So this is something that I've been, in a lot of the comments that I'm seeing or sharing, that I'm seeing in Facebook, or people are asking me about, I cannot stop eating certain things, or having all this food in my house, having 2 months or 3 months supply of food. Of course we're going to get some ice cream, right? Like, or of course we're going to get some cookies, but I can't stop eating it. And so my recommendation for that is to you can start to pre-portion things out. Like, for example, you can put, if it's a bag of chips that you open, you can pre-portion it out per serving size and put it in like little baggies or little containers, or whatever you have on hand, so that you can, if you're sitting in front of the TV having the snack, you can eat it according to the proportion, instead of just taking the whole bag with you and then eating as much as you want. To feed off that tip is to put the food in an inconvenient place. So, for example, if you have that bag of chips or that container of cookies, you put it somewhere that's inconvenient for you to get. So maybe it's like on top of the fridge and there's things on top of the fridge and you're like, damn it, like I'm not going to go through that effort to just get that, bag of cookies out. Even if it's in the basement, if you have like a pantry in the basement, you can put things away in the basement. So just do what you can with what you have and with what we have accessible right now. I mean, I know for myself, when I'm looking in the pantry, I'm like, well, what am I going to have? Oh, a bag of chips? I am definitely going to eat that bag of chips. And even when it came to the candy, like that extra box of candy was lingering around, right? And it got eaten the next day because it was lingering around. But if I put it somewhere, if I took my own advice and I put it somewhere further away, I probably would if it was more than, a half of a small box of candy. Like if it was that big bag of Ziploc, big things you buy from Costco or Sam's, I definitely would have put it away. If it's just sitting out, I will eat it. And so my next point would be to don't buy the food that makes you feel guilty in the first place. Don't bring it home. And this can be easier said than done, right? Because if you're like, well, Jamie, I have kids that eat the stuff too, or my husband loves ice cream, like I can't not have it in the house. And you can have a conversation with them. Can we possibly try a healthier option? Can we try to make this instead? Can we work out some kind of deal? Or try to put it somewhere else in the house where it's not as easily accessible by you. I would recommend not bringing the things into your house in the first place. For example, with the candy, like, I had to go out and go buy a small box of candy instead of just already having it ready in my house. My final thought about this is that if you find yourself jumping from savory to sweet foods like cheese to ice cream to chips to cookies, it could be your body trying to tell you and balance out the high salt and the high sugar levels. And if you ever had ice cream, wanting something like salty or like wanting some chips afterwards, and that is just your body's natural response to say, I have so much sugar in my bloodstream right now, please give me some water, and to balance this out, give me something salty. And so this happens when you have something very sweet, you're going to want something savory afterwards to balance out. Your body naturally does that to balance out your blood sugar, and vice versa. If you have something really salty, like, whether it's peanuts or chips or Cheetos or whatever, you're going to want something sweet. That's why we typically want like soda. As soon as we have like a burger and French fries, we immediately want soda because it provides us with that balance of that sweet. So our body's always craving the balance, and our job is to really give it a healthy, balanced meal, healthy, balanced lifestyle. And yeah, that's all we can do to stay well. It's really important to stay healthy during this quarantine, for more reason than just weight reasons, but for our immune health and our immune support and, all these different things, and our mental clarity, in addition to our physical weight. But anyway, listen, I hope that this was helpful. I just wanted to share these tips with you because I know that this is something that I'm hearing a lot about, and I want to be able to share those things with you that I know has helped me, and hopefully it can help you. And if you found this helpful, feel free to share it with a friend. And thanks so much for hanging out with me. I'll catch you in the next episode.